Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm going like that because I'm revved up and ready to talk. It has been, let's see, 2 months. Well, come Monday, would you believe it has been already 2 weeks? Come Monday since the murder of.
It has been already
yeah,
2 weeks.
Since the murder.
Come Monday since
the
the
murder
murder
of George Floyd at the knee of Minneapolis Park police officer Derek Chauvin. Time flies. Let's consider the vast array of events since that video surfaced the day after the Memorial Day that the incident happened. We have had protests and looting in 145 different cities. We have had example after example after example after example after example after example after example of police brutality done before a smartphone camera, the image propagated millions of times around the internet and therefore around the world. We have had firing after firing after firing of police officers, police chiefs, in some cases elected, public officials, because they were caught doing something that in the past would not have even gotten them a slap on the wrist. This is indeed a new day. But for the National Football League, the swirl of events really didn't hit a place where it obviously impacted the league until this video surfaced as presented by New York Giants running back Saquon Barkley.
It's been 10 days since George Floyd was brutally murdered.
How many times do we need to ask you to listen to your players?
What will it take
for one of us to be murdered by police brutality?
What if I was George Floyd?
If I was George Floyd.
What if I was George Floyd?
If I was George Floyd.
If I was George Floyd.
If I was George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am Breonna Taylor.
I am Ahmaud Arbery.
I am Eric Garner.
I am Kwame McDonald.
I am Tamir Rice.
I am Trayvon Martin.
I am Walter Scott.
I am Michael Brown Jr.
I am Samuel Du Bois.
I am Frank Smart. I'm Philip White.
I am Jordan Baker.
We will not be silenced.
We assert our right to
Peacefully protest.
It shouldn't take this long to admit. So, on behalf of the National Football League,
this is what we, the players,
Would like to hear you state.
we,
the National Football League,
condemn racism and the systematic oppression of black people.
We, the National Football League,
admit wrong and silencing our players from peacefully protesting.
we, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
Black lives.
And after that surfaced,
It's
we
been
had a great change, a dramatic change that hit the National Football League like a ton of bricks and came in the form of this statement from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell that reads, and I read it before, but it bears reading again. The NFL family is greatly saddened by the tragic events across our country. The protesters' reactions to these incidents reflect the pain, anger, and frustration that so many of us feel. Our deepest condolences go out to the family of Mr. George Floyd and to those who have lost loved ones, including the families of Ms. Breonna Taylor in Louisville and Mr. Ahmaud Arbery, the cousin of Tracy Walker of the Detroit Lions. As current events dramatically underscore, there remains much more to do as a country and as a league. These tragedies inform the NFL's commitment and our ongoing efforts. There remains an urgent need for action. We realize the power of our platform and communities, and as part of the fabric of American society. We embrace that responsibility and are committed to continuing the important work to address these systemic issues together with our players, clubs, and partners. But what happened, even as that was posted, was there were a lot of people within the league who were really upset at the events going on. So much so that they made their cases known in a private Zoom that the details of which were released last week. That featured a lot of crying and anguish among a number of NFL employees, and that gave rise to the video that I showed you from the players. But what then happened was unprecedented, and it came straight from, as they say, the horse's mouth, and a number of people were quite obviously caught off guard. Most notably, the people who were caught off guard were those people who at one point believed that, well, the National Football League would essentially have their back when it came to, racist events. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that is not true. And Roger Goodell let everybody know it when he said this.
It has been a difficult time for our country, in particular, Black people in our country. First, my condolences to families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and all the families who have endured police brutality. We, the National Football League, condemn racism and the systematic oppression of Black people. We, the National Football League, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encourage all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter. I personally protest with you and want to be part of the much needed change in this country. Without Black players, there would be no National Football League. And the protests around the country are emblematic of the centuries of silence, inequality, and oppression of Black players, coaches, fans, and staff. We are listening. I am listening. And I will be reaching out to players who have raised their voices and others on how we can improve and go forward for a better and more united NFL family.
Now, after he said that, there was a great hue and cry of people saying, hey, look, are you going to bring back Colin Kaepernick? That's up in the air, but one would think that would be the logical next step.
And the NFL Players
and the reason why
are dedicated to supporting the overall health of its players,
should be the
coaches,
logical
and
next
staff.
step.
This includes a strong commitment
to
mental health.
Quite simply,
When we talk about mental health, a lot of times we just think, no,
is quite simply because, well, it was Colin Kaepernick who raised these issues in a very courageous way. And he did so at the behest, in terms of the decision to use the kneeling posture, of a military veteran. A lot of people seem to forget that. He was trying to find a way to bring attention to the many atrocities that have been captured by smartphones even over the last 2 weeks. Even over the last 2 weeks, including this weekend. And bring to a head the simple fact of the matter is that, look, in many cities around the United States, our police force acts like a military force against its own people, specifically its own Black people. That state of affairs cannot and should not be allowed to stand. So where are we with all of this? Well, look, if you take a look at Twitter, there are people who are upset, who represent either real people or bots. I say that because as much as hashtag NFL boycott is a trend among NFL hashtags. I think it's number 2 behind the NFL itself. I remind everybody that the Trump administration and the Republican Party has been known and recorded as using gigantic social media approaches, apparatuses, networks, similar to some that I built, frankly, and larger because they're better financed to get their word out in ways that lead you to think you're engaging with an actual person when in point of fact, you may very well be engaging with a bot. I remind you of that. And so not surprisingly, you have tweets that say that, first of all, the NFL is essentially giving up the league to Black Americans. I'm here to tell you something, folks, as we unpack this. That's about the stupidest take I've ever heard. It really is. And it's stupid because, first of all, there's nothing, it's not about giving up anything. Let me explain to you what I think is going to happen as we unpack this, okay? And part of what I explained to you, a large part of it has to do with my observations as a person who has formed Super Bowl bid, who's covered the NFL, and who's formed his own media company around the National Football League and has in total a relationship with the National Football League that goes back to 1993 as in that way. Now, as a fan, it goes back even further to 1974, but I'm not counting that. I'm talking about one where I've had the opportunity to attend more than one NFL owners meeting, sit and have private conversations with NFL owners like the late Bob McNair, and come away having made friends with many NFL owners and executives. The people I've known for a long, long time, like my good friend Ed Goins, who is the general counsel for the Seattle Seahawks, among others, and one of the league's top Black executives, okay? So what I believe will come from this is really what's already happening. The Carolina Panthers rejected a sponsorship from a CPI security because the CEO of that organization wrote that for all practical purposes, he and his organization were against Black Lives Matter. That's about the stupidest thing that you can write in the middle of a movement. But hey, you know what? He did it. And so, not surprisingly, the Carolina Panthers, from owner Dave Tepper all the way down to the person who cleans the building, said, hey, you know what? Bye-bye. 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 Okay? Bye-bye. It simply means that the racism that has been commonly practiced will go away. That's what it means. In hiring, in thinking, in listening. The one big thing that's already gone away is the fact that in the past, okay, the problem wasn't recognized. The NFL gains its players from poor Black communities in America, for the most part. That is a simple fact. And I've said this for years to the league. I've been a big proponent of the NFL Yet program, and I'll explain what the NFL Yet program is in a second, that the league needs to restart and grow that. We had a fantastic conversation about that sidebar at the NFL Spring League meeting of last year in Arizona. I loved it. We had Larry Fitzgerald. We had the CEO of the Boys Club, and we had representatives from, I believe, the Phoenix Police Department there. It was great. The sad part about it, as it was rolled out, okay, And that's why I think we need a different iteration. It's something that I'm going to talk to someone about. I was about to drop the name, but I'm going to leave that as a private. Okay. But my thought is this is a wonderful time to really strengthen the underpinnings of the NFL's community engagement program that was first born out of the ashes of the NFL anthem protest controversy. All right. Which really came to a head at the Conrad Hilton during the NFL Fall Owners Meeting of 2018. Remember that where we had the protest outside? If you don't, you can go to Zenny62 Media right here. Well, excuse me, Zenny62 on YouTube, type NFL protest. You'll see the videos from outside the Conrad Hilton, where the NFL and the Conrad Hilton Hotel gave the people, they call it the Conrad, gave the protesters room and space to make their voice and images heard and seen. All right. But that was great, but more needs to be done. And what specifically needs to be done is this. First of all, NFL players need to be protected. For all of those NFL players that have said, I am George Floyd, I say I am George Floyd too. And I've said this for years. NFL players are preyed upon by people who see them as a way to get money. In many cases, the people who do the preying are the same women, all right, let's just be really blunt, who marry them, and that player thinks that they've hit the jackpot with that person and that she's going to take care of him. There are a number of instances where that's not true. For me personally, the most tragic one was my late cousin, Fred Lane Jr., running back with the Carolina Panthers and the Indianapolis Colts. His wife, Deidre Lane, was a person that his parents, my aunt and uncle, were not in favor of. But Fred closed them out, let her, in a sense, take over. Meanwhile, she concocted a scheme to make it look like he had committed domestic violence against her. It was all a scheme for her to take his money. And what she did in executing this was kill Fred Lane Jr. You understand what I'm saying? If the NFL had a system where it was able to vet people who came in contact with the players, I will bet you creds Navy beans that Fred Lane Jr. would still be alive today. Okay, so it's not Fred Lane Jr. Let's take Reuben Foster, the San Francisco 49ers. I think you know that story too. All right? We're talking about African-American players who come from small southern towns. They're unsophisticated with the ways of the big city, and there's no one to chaperone or protect them. That needs to be in place. And then the NFL needs to give back to those towns by having NFL youth education towns, places that where the league works with local organizations, has a matching fund. The NFL puts in $1 million, now it'll be $2 million. The other organizations put in, say, another $2 million. You have $4 million to build a place where youth can get off the streets, because that way we're building the future. What I'm talking about, folks, are concrete plans for the future, okay? Right now you're hearing a lot of words that are great, a lot of developments that are great, but words for the future. What the NFL had at the owners' meeting at the Conrad and at the NFL Spring League meeting in Arizona, to be blunt, degenerated into a let's show law enforcement that we like them sort of thing, and that the NFL knows, has the NFL players meet officers and law enforcement officials and understand how hard their job is. That was a mistake. It was a mistake born of a racist culture that said, we're not going to listen to your problems. We're going to have you listen to our problems. Okay. Now it's 180 degrees the other way. It's 180 degrees the other way. And now what it says is we are going to listen to you. Listening is very simple to do. It's something that when 2008, the Davos Forum came up and asked people to identify by video blog what they thought the predicament of the day was, the problem of the day. I said it was racism. None other than actress Emma Thompson responded back and said, Zinni, and it's a video that I'm going to play in another presentation, but she said, Zinni, you're absolutely right. Listening is what we all have to do. We have to hear each other's stories, okay? Too much of the time, we have people, particularly either in person or on a social media platform, saying, I'm not racist or sexist. But in this case, I'm not racist, as opposed to saying, how can I get better as a person? What can I do? Let me give you a personal example, what I'm talking about that has to do with sexism. A friend of mine, I went to a dinner to meet her, a tech dinner, and we were talking about a particular something that happened, and I used the term catfight, which is a derogatory term, basically saying two women, having an argument. She told me never, ever to use that term. Folks, that was 15 years ago. The only other time I've ever used the term catfight was just right now in describing to you why I stopped using it. Because a friend said it to me. I didn't argue. I didn't say I wasn't being sexist because she's a woman, right? And she feels that her feelings have been hurt. And so I'm going to tell her she's wrong and she's my friend. That's wrong, okay? Same thing with racism, okay? Don't be afraid to get better as a person. Now, with respect to the league, and I point out the league has crossed that barrier of not being afraid to get better by listening, right? But the question is, now that the ear of the league has been engaged, where do we go? I'm not going to answer that entire question right now. But I will say that the first priority has to be taking care of its players so that the NFL has made absolutely certain that none of its players become the next, or its retirees become the next George Floyd. That's got to be priority number one, okay? And to do that, it means the National Football League, rather than just protecting its players, it has to make sure that police organizations around the country are reformed in how they engage with African Americans. Lest you think there is a problem. I have a video. I'm not going to turn to show you. I'm just going to tell you about it. A guy named Malik Watkins was arrested and detained by Alameda police officers for dancing in the street. You hear what I'm saying? Dancing within the street. It was so stupid, the encounter, that it defies belief until you listen to the officer himself say, "Sir, you're being arrested for dancing in the street." What? Okay. Because a woman, white, called the police using a non-emergency number, which I believe she did deliberately because she knew if she had called 911 and it had been determined a false claim call, in other words, based on that person's race, she could have been put in the Huscal herself. So she very cleverly called, sinisterly cleverly called, as a non-emergency number. Bad stuff. So here come the cops rolling up. It's all on body cam, and they engage him to detain him. He, not being sophisticated in how to work with police, starts arguing. Oh, they got him there. Okay. It's not like they're trained in trying to talk to him and explain, hey, look, we just want to find out if you're okay. All right. All they had to do is say, hey, you know what? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. This is what this lady called and said that you were doing. Oh no, I'm just dancing. Here's the big kicker, folks. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Dancing in the street is covered by the Constitution. It's called the First Amendment. It's called peaceable assembly. If you don't know your constitutional rights, you're going to get screwed. He didn't know his constitutional rights, and the police didn't know. Guess what? He can now sue them for as much as $5 million and get a payday because of their stupidity and racism. Racism is a mental illness. So what the NFL has to do is make absolutely certain that this mental illness of racism is removed from law enforcement. That means firing a lot of people. That means altering a lot of work rules. That means having a new form of engagement. There really isn't a new form of engagement if you think about it from the standpoint of being a gentle person. All right? But a number of law enforcement organizations have spent decade after decade becoming small military organizations to fight the war on drugs and everything else that we had no business doing. But we did it. Now it's time for a more humane approach that should include citizens being able to arrest police officers for violating laws. That should be a major change. Again, I can go down a rabbit hole and discuss these changes with you in great detail. Why? Because my background in urban planning, working for cities, representing the mayor of Oakland, two mayors of Oakland, advising a number of elected officials, even to this day. Okay? So pro bono, because they're friends, all right? So, and then writing about it, commenting about it. That has to be a focus of the league. Now, anybody out there who would be stupid enough to say that the league is well, we're giving it up to the black folks. I mean, all this stuff. That is brain dead stuff, man. I mean, the person saying that can't even identify what that means. Because if that person means going back to the way it was, then what that person means is they like that the NFL was racist. There are a number of sports writers and sports commentators who fed into that, who now need to pull back and watch their star fade. Okay? Like Clay Travis, all right, among others, who have used literally the backs of black players to build notoriety. Let's be honest. That's what they've done, okay? And they've echoed this undercurrent of racism that has festered within the NFL for a long, long time. No. In game. No more. No more. Okay? No more. So, Jamie says, is dancing a felony or misdemeanor? No, it's not. In fact, I'm glad you asked me that, Jamie, because get this. In the case of Malik Watkins, there was a similar occurrence in 2014 where a man named Alexander Zebeke was decided to make a dance video to enter into this contest that was produced by Ellen DeGeneres. And so he started dancing in Manhattan behind these police officers, right, to this tune. But the police officers, well, they didn't know, but they decided they were going to be jerks and arrest him right there on the spot for dancing behind them. And they were all on the street. So it wasn't like, hey, you're dancing in the street. In fact, the police actually said, hey, are you making fun of us? It was more about their egos. Okay? Guess what? He sued them for $5 million. Came away with $33,500. So that's why I say Molly Watkins can come away with a payday, and maybe even a better one than the gentleman in New York realized a few years ago. All of these need to stop. These are good things. To make our society safer for everybody. And one thing that people don't understand is that today, you have a lot of people in the interracial middle. So I think it's a great day for the NFL. Owners will have to change the way they think about things. Like, hey, Mark Davis, Raiders owner, who said that they're going to have to find new solutions. Well, I'm giving them some of those solutions right here. There'll be more coming. But I'll tell you, the person that's been at the forefront of this as an NFL owner for some time now is Jed York. And I expect Jed York to lead on this just as he led from the beginning. All right? Talking about the 49er owner. But I also am very proud, I have to say surprisingly proud, of the Carolina Panthers and Dave Tepper. Going saying, you know what? Hey, this is not something that we want. And this is something that we are going to reject. We're going to reject this sponsor, and we are going to replace him. And it wasn't just him. Okay. It wasn't just him that said that. You had all of the professional organizations, all the professional sports organizations in the Carolinas. Isn't that something else? They all said, you know what? Collectively, bye-bye. We don't need you. All right. That's cool stuff. That's really cool stuff. No one wants to deal with a racist. Period. End of story. They just don't. All right. And why? What says, as to steal a term from a film, what's the fun in that? There is no fun. All right. At all. No fun. Nothing but, sorrow and negativity, as they say, and everything else. Why do that? In fact, when I think about these episodes with these people who have these ideas, boy, they're some of the least fun people I've ever encountered. It's like they're so unhappy, They're not the person that I would say, hey, you want to go to 21 and have dinner or something? And I say that for a reason, because Donald Trump has been playing you if you're a Trump supporter. PJ. Donald Trump has been playing you. Because the Donald Trump that I know is the Donald Trump that on the 8th of January, okay, 2000, you heard me, the 8th of January, 2015, that Donald Trump decided that he was going to go on David Letterman's show and basically say, hey, it's okay to flag burn. I'm all for it. You think I'm kidding, okay? You think I'm kidding you. You think I'm joking, don't you, okay? All right? I am not joking, okay? I am not joking. He did say that. This was before he decided to announce that he was running for president of the United States, okay? And the minute he decided to announce he was running for president of the United States, well, guess what? He did a about face. But check out. This is Donald Trump. I'm about to present to you right here, okay? Hey, Joseph, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Outstanding. I'm about to show everybody Donald Trump on David Letterman, 8th of January, 2015, expressing his support for flag burning. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. This is it, folks. As Samuel L. Jackson would say in Jurassic Park, basically, what is it he said? He said, hold on to your butts. Okay, so I'm saying this. Hold on to your butts, because here it comes. As soon as, there we go. And there is there we go, right here. And here we are. There it is. And we play it now.
January 2015 full interview. And this occurs at right here, which is the 8-minute and 15-second mark. Here we go. Right here.
You were on Twitter, I'm told, last night talking about the horrific attack in Paris. And it seems like every day, some other part of the country, sadly, sometimes here in our country, something similar, it's gotten to be not unusual.
No, it's terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. That was a terrible one. And, you know, France has very strong gun laws, the strongest they say in the world, and it still happens.
But is it a gun control issue, really?
I don't know what it is. It's people that are just, it's a whole different viewpoint. It's terrible.
Yes, it is terrible. It's a religious problem. It's a cultural problem. It's an intolerance problem. Right. It's people who don't believe in freedom of expression. How do we... I mean, it's multi-headed. Where do we go?
Well, how do we? It would be nice to say there is really a solution, but you're always going to have it. I mean, you look through thousands of years of history, you've always had people, and you've always had, whether it's crazy people or people with, as you say, a point of view. But this was a terrible thing. A lot of people killed, and for no reason whatsoever. And it's a tough deal. Yeah. I will say this: the magazine, they've had a lot of problems over the years, and they were really, you know, we know about people that are very tough, and they were very tough on a lot of different people. But who would ever think this would happen?
Yes, but okay. Here's the example that I'm always proud of as an American. People to demonstrate, they think we're really going to stick it to the United States. We're going to set fire to the flag.
Yeah, right.
And people get, oh my God. Well, no. If that's how you feel, go ahead and burn the flag, because this country is far greater than that symbol, and that symbol is standing for freedom of expression. And there's no other country, right?
You're 100%.
Yeah. So,
he's really into it tonight. I'll tell you that.
I mean,
no, but I understand where you're coming from.
I'm not a religious fan, but I do consider myself to be very spiritual.
No, I mean, I'm stopping right there because they go on, but the point's made, and that is that before Donald Trump was against protests of symbols that some say represent America. I mean, in point of fact, protest itself represents the American ideal. He was for it, and this is proof. And I didn't stop this to prove a point. In other words, there's no point at this interview, and you can find it for yourself and watch the entire interview, where Donald Trump backtracks and says, well, I didn't mean to say that. What I meant was this. No. He had several opportunities right then and there, did Donald Trump, to oppose what David Letterman said. And he didn't do it. Not only did he not do it, you saw him, he nodded on several occasions. Hey, within this, I agree. You want me to replay it for you so you can see? I mean, it's right here. I mean, you could rewind this, or look, okay? You can watch this. Watch, okay? Watch.
So,
see, he nods. See how he nods nods in affirmation. And then he says,
into it tonight. I'll tell you that.
See? All right?
I mean, no, but I understand where you're coming from.
And then he says, then I understand where you're coming from. And we have to set the scene here too. I remember exactly where I was when what they're talking about happened. And what they're talking about is the Charlie attack on the staff of the magazine Charlie Hebdo in Paris. I was at CES Las Vegas 2015 when that attack occurred. And I was actually staying at the Alexa Hotel. And I was on the way out again, and I saw these, they were passing out, CES attendees were passing out these little stickers that says, Je suis Charlie. I am Charlie. Je suis Charlie in French. I am Charlie. I put one on in a second. I speak a little French, but that's beside the point. Je suis Charlie. And so up and down the corridors of the Las Vegas Convention Center, at the Venetian, at the Mandalay Bay, wherever you went, you saw these. Just Swiss Charlie. Charlie Hebdo is a publication known for its attacks on sacred cows, on symbols that are sometimes symbols of nationalism, sometimes religious symbols. In this case, they sort of picked the wrong sacred cow. But then when you do that, what is the right sacred cow if you're trying to make a point? Okay? But that's beside my message. The message is here that Donald Trump, as president, is manipulating everyone. He doesn't believe in what he's saying. He is only pushing a button to get you, the person trapped into discussing the NFL protest, off focusing on what he's really trying to do. And he's continuing to divide the country for his own purposes. I've said that before, and here is absolute proof. Is not the only example. He did this with the Confederate flag issue and the Confederate statue issue. Before he was elected president, Donald Trump was for the idea of taking down Confederate memorials and placing them, as he put it, in a museum.
Yep.
After president, he has a big issue with it. Why? Because it upsets those conservatives, really white Southerners, who he identifies as his base. It's not so much his base. It's just like easily manipulated into reacting negatively to any perceived attack on what they are identifying as symbols of America. And Donald Trump and his people are into that. Donald Trump does not believe it for a second. His track record proves it. He is using pure Machiavellian techniques to manipulate those who are easily manipulated. And this proves it. Right here. Want more? Let's have at it again. Right here. Okay.
A lot of people killed, and for no reason whatsoever, and it's a tough deal.
Yeah.
I will say this: the magazine, they've had a lot of problems over the years, and they were really, we know about.
And he's talking about Charlie Hebdo, folks.
But we know about people that are very tough, and they were very tough on a lot of different people. But who would ever think this would happen?
Yes, but okay. Here's the example that I'm always proud of as an American.
And listen to this. Here's the example I'm always proud of as an American.
People to demonstrate they think we're really going to stick it to the United States. We're going to set fire to the flag.
Yeah, right.
And people get, oh my God. Well, no. If that's how you feel, go ahead and burn the flag, because this country is far greater.
And he nods in affirmation.
Than that symbol, and that symbol is standing for freedom of expression. And
And he says that's true. See, hear that?
Right? You're 100% right.
Yeah. So,
And he says you're 100% right, not 50%. He doesn't disagree with them at all. 100%.
Hey, he's really into it tonight.
well,
See? All right. Now do you see? For those of you who say, oh, Trump said this, and the NFL players are going against him and everything. Trump does not believe his own words. Here's proof. So please stop.
And what you see, I brought to the attention of the National Football League just before the fall owners meeting in 2018 at the Conrad. And I'll just simply say that it had a dramatic impact on the press conference, because the game was essentially to pull apart Commissioner Goodell and basically save him by giving him a tool to say, hey, you know what? The president, not for him to call out the president, but for the question to be asked to Roger, hey, are you aware that Donald Trump himself was for flag burning? And that question got out. That was engineered, folks, because we were trying to save the NFL from being harmed by the president. That's what we were trying to do. On that day, we did it. That was engineered by me and a bunch of other people whose names I'm not going to drop, but we did it. And it's time to do it again. Okay? And for the good of this country. This country is built on discussion and dissent. But more important, this country is built on improvement. And no one can tell me that what we've been going through over the last 3 years has been healthy. It's not. It hasn't gotten us anywhere. You want to talk about the economy? We inherited the economy from President Obama. And now look where we are with the pandemic and everything else. What say you, Joseph? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, I 100% agree. That's one of the things that I have always believed, that this president doesn't believe in anything. What he believes in is the perception of power. And if you could gain that power by appeasing to this racially biased people, he will do that. I mean, this man is so insecure that if you see in that video, and this is that small piece of video that you show where he's nodding his head in agreement, that's after the audience is applauding, because this man just sways with the waves. You know, he wants to be a part of something, and he is so insecure, not only about himself, but about what he represents, that he has to latch on to something. And when that something is not only racist, negative, and bigoted, he will latch on to that, so he has this perception of being on top. And that's what this is all about. This man is an insecure, he's not a very bright man, no matter what any people say. And I think there's something mentally wrong with this man.
Well, I disagree. I think he's bright, but he's bright. And I always say this: a person can be bright at one thing, but doesn't mean they're bright at other things. Donald Trump is bright at building a brand and making you believe in the value of that brand. Okay. Now, I say this as a person who tried out to be on The Apprentice. The Donald Trump that I thought was going to run for president is the Donald Trump that I saw watching The Apprentice all the time. I was an Apprentice junkie, okay? And I'm an entrepreneur. And I've always believed that we needed an entrepreneurial political class rather than just a Democrat or Republican political class, for a whole set of reasons that I don't think is appropriate to go into for this show and what we're talking about. But my point is, when Donald Trump came down the escalator at Trump Tower and the atrium there, and then gave that speech and started talking about Mexicans and all these other negatives, I made a video about it. Right thing, I was in Chicago at my stepfather's, and I just let loose because I knew what he was trying to do. And it was reprehensible. What he was trying to do was this, and he did it. Okay, he did it. What he did was he refashioned himself into this conservative, arch-conservative, evangelical loving, if you assume that every evangelical is Southern, candidate who just happened to be from New York. And the reason why I say it just like that with emphasis is this reason. Because prior to the ascent of Donald Trump this time, he's ran for president before, it was known that if you were from the New York area, it didn't matter who you were, Clinton or anybody else, Hillary, you were not going to be president of the United States because you had to win the South. All right? You had to win the South. So the question is, how do you win the South? Well, like it or not, Donald Trump gave every future New Yorker who would dare go in that direction an answer, except for this fact. He played that harp too well. He played it so well that he wrecked any future candidate's possibility of getting elected who would think to play a racist angle. He has wrecked it for arguably another 50 years. And I say that because I think about George Wallace and the people who've done it before. It can be done again, but the way waves work, it's going to take another half century or more. I would say now another 100 years as we enter the robotics age and the artificial intelligence age, then it'll take on a different form. But my point is, with respect to the old racism, Donald Trump has effectively wrecked that strategy. He's wrecked it for himself, and it's a good wreckage. It's a good thing to have wrecked, okay? He didn't intend to wreck it, I think. And the reason why I say that is because he would make move after move after move that were just absolutely nuts. And I would start entertaining the idea. I thought, either it seems like he's trying to see how far he can push this thing, and it keeps going, and he likes that it keeps going. It's getting him what he wants, it seems. But when is he going to pull back and stop? Or is he just going to like crazily keep going with it because he's gone so far and he can't pull back? And I think right now that's where he's at. He's gone so far, he can't pull back, and he's screwed. All right? And the country is risen up against him for the most part. Their whole businesses, people, institutions that are being altered overnight, including the NFL, and he has to sit back and watch in horror behind his bed in the White House that is now surrounded by extra fencing to keep out protesters. I never thought I'd see that kind of country, but that's where we are.
And on another note, with everything that you mentioned, when you talked about him being a right-wing conservative, or that's how he's portraying himself now, if you look and listen to interviews he did even in the early 2000s, he fashioned himself a liberal Democrat and actually praised Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Oh, he played. Yeah.
And that's what people tend to forget because everybody's wrapped up about what he's doing now. But again, as we always know, is that know your history and go back and look at his interviews and read what he talked about as early as the early 2000s. It's two different Donald Trumps.
Right. And see, now here's the thing, okay? Where Trump is right now, okay, and where the NFL is right now, all right, is that Bob Kraft and Jerry Jones, who are friends of his, are now themselves forced to change. And how that manifests itself will be fascinating to watch because it will happen in the vacuum of change around all of them. This is change that they didn't call for, including, I'll put into the mix, Stephen Ross and Jimmy Haslam, among others, okay? And the Glazer family too, okay? As well as the McNair family. Bob McNair was a friend as well. The NFL is a staunchly Republican organization. It has been for as long as I can remember. But now it has to alter its thinking. It is altering its thinking because it knows that the country is not going to allow it to function the way that it did. And not only that, frankly speaking, I can tell you for a fact, the NFL in the form of Roger Goodell, whose dad was the only Republican, Charles Goodell, to vote against the Vietnam War, he never wanted the NFL as it is. Roger didn't even want the Raiders in Las Vegas. I'm just telling you that, okay? But there are people that he works for that did. And they won out. He works for them. So where we are is fascinating to watch and also be a part of. And we're going to have this discussion again. It is 11:34 p.m. in the East. Joseph, you want to come back for some more fun later in the week? We're talking about getting together on Wednesday to continue this discussion. Myself and Mason Riggs, and now you, if you can join it.
Cool. I can. And before we go, I just finished my latest review on Penny Dreadful City of Angels. As soon as we're done and I get home, I'm going to post that. And please everybody enjoy it, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And I hope you enjoy it too, Zenny.
Cool, I will definitely. And stick around. Don't go anywhere, Joseph. Hey, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow. And God bless you, and God bless the United States of America and the National Football League. We'll see.
Amen to that.